Welcome back to the Republic Brothers Podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike. Today's March 1st, 2026, and this is episode 38. Before we get into the show, please hit the subscribe button and like the episode so you don't miss our next episode on Thursday. The smoke is still clearing over Tehran after Operation Epic Fury, and the Ayatollah is dead. The IRGC is in ruins, and while the media calls it escalation, the Iranian people are celebrating in the streets. We're breaking down why the world is finally safer with a commander-in-chief who actually pulls the trigger. Let's go.
Well, there is only one place to start today's episode, and that is the nation that is the center of one of the most consequential geopolitical crises of our time. In the past 72 hours, the world has witnessed an unprecedented escalation in the long-standing tensions between Tehran, Washington, and Jerusalem. An escalation that has fundamentally changed Iran's political landscape and could reshape the Middle East.
Before we get into the analysis, let's go to the man who actually made the call. Here is President Trump speaking just hours ago on Operation Epic Fury and the success of the mission.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of countless thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Last night, all over Iran, the voices of the Iranian people could be heard cheering and celebrating in the streets when his death was announced. The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization. They have waged war against civilization itself. Our resolve, and likewise that of Israel, has never been stronger. America is now, again, the richest, most powerful nation in the world by far. But the only reason we enjoy the quality of life that we do and the freedom and security is we have done things that others are unable to do. But it's because of warriors who are willing to lay down their lives to do battle with our enemies. And they do battle better than anybody. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. Not going to let it happen. We're not happening to us, and we're not going to let it happen to others. The United States has the strongest military the world has ever seen. I rebuilt our military in my first term. There's never been a military like we possess. And frankly, there's nobody even close, but we are now using that military for good. We want to have it for good purpose. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan, "Death to America," or "Death to Israel," or both. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. We are the world's greatest and most powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, and police to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. Thank you. God bless you to our incredible warriors, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, Matt, so we just played President Trump's speech from just a couple hours before we recorded the episode. So give us all the information here.
At the heart of this unfolding crisis is the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. State media and multiple international sources now confirm that Khamenei, who had led Iran since 1989 and wielded ultimate authority over the country's government, armed forces, judiciary, and foreign policy, was killed in a coordinated series of airstrikes by the United States and Israel in Tehran on February 28, 2026. This attack, described by U.S. and Israeli officials as a decisive blow against Tehran's hardline leadership, has not only claimed the life of the supreme leader, but has decimated Iran's senior command structure. According to official military sources, an estimated 40 high-ranking Iranian officials and military commanders were killed in those strikes, including some of the most influential figures in the Islamic Republic's security apparatus. Among them, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was supreme leader, General Abdul Rahim Mousavi, who was Iran's chief of staff, General Mohammad Pakpour, who was commander of the IRGC, Defense Minister General Aziz Nasirzadeh, and major figures linked to advanced defense and weaponry programs. All of these important people in the government were together at once, believing that since the U.S. and Israel did not strike the night before, they were safe to meet. The U.S. and Israel saw an opportunity they could not pass up, so they moved their plans forward and launched the strikes at 9:15 a.m. local time, surprising everyone as we normally launch attacks in the middle of the night.
The fact that all these guys got into a room together thinking that they were safe, only to end up getting blown up. I mean, people underestimate our military and our intelligence all the time, and Israel's for that matter.
It's clear at this point Israel had penetrated Iran's leadership to the fullest extent. These losses represent not only a strategic decapitation of Iran's military and security leadership, but also a profound blow to the institutional continuity that has underpinned the Islamic Republic for decades. The strikes have resulted in retaliatory exchanges, with Iranian missile and drone barrages targeting Israeli territory and U.S. bases in the region, raising fears that the conflict could spill even further across the Middle East. Hezbollah forces in Lebanon have joined the fray, launching rockets toward northern Israel as the region braces for expanded hostilities. Iran has also launched attacks. We have seen attacks on numerous U.S. bases across the Gulf region. While many of the attacks were intercepted, some got through. Missiles and drones were launched at bases in Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, and others. A notable target was the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command headquarters in Bahrain. On March 1st, U.S. officials confirmed 3 service members were killed and 5 others were seriously wounded during combat operations. Officials did not say which strike resulted in casualties for the U.S. Iran launched hundreds of missiles and drones towards Israel, including military bases, defense infrastructure, and urban areas. Most were intercepted, but some got through, resulting in at least 9 killed and around 120 others injured. These all come with a large caveat, as the numbers are fluid and they update frequently, so these may be lower than figures you hear later on. While we saw strikes against U.S. targets in Bahrain, we also saw drones cause significant damage to residential buildings and the international airport in Bahrain. The UAE saw missiles and drones launched towards their territory, and while they were all shot down, debris and falling fragments fell into urban areas, resulting in property damage and confirmed civilian casualties. Airspace throughout the region saw closures and safety warnings, and many of them continue to this moment. One interesting part of this is how the Gulf states have responded. Many of the Gulf states have publicly denounced Iran's missile and drone strikes that hit their territories. Saudi Arabia described the attacks as a blatant violation of sovereignty and said it would support and defend any Gulf state nation if it deemed necessary. Qatar labeled the missile strikes as an unacceptable escalation, and it reserved the right to respond accordingly. Kuwait and Bahrain described the actions as destabilizing. The response from these nations makes you think Iran made no new friends from their reaction, but given the senior leadership was eliminated, a messy and uncoordinated response was somewhat expected. Inside Iran, there is a mixture of shock, fear, and in some places, jubilation. Scenes from Tehran show people reacting to explosions and reports of leadership death, while elsewhere, crowds alternatively celebrate and express deep anxiety about what comes next.
You know, the left says that we're agitators in all this, but we have to look at the actual conditions in Iran. We saw the protests. Is the Iranian leadership dealing with a population that finally reached their breaking point?
For years before this moment, Iran has struggled with profound pressures internally. The economy was battered by long-standing sanctions, crippling inflation, currency in freefall. They were seeing massive protests, mostly driven by economic hardship and political repression. At times, those have erupted with hundreds of thousands of demonstrators in the streets, and we saw how Iran dealt with them. There was a deep dissatisfaction among the younger generations with a system they increasingly view as corrupt, unresponsive, and out of touch with their aspirations. Since news of Khamenei's death, we have seen many parades and protests throughout the world, some of them in the U.S. as well. The vast majority are happy the Ayatollah was killed and hope for a more free and prosperous Iran in the future. When you look at the counter-protests, you don't really see any Iranian or Iranian-American people.
I think it's funny that you see these protests from these people on the left, and every time they go out and protest, they're always holding another nation's flag. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes, and in most cases, it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, we saw them protest for Palestine. We've now see them carrying around the Iranian flag, the Mexican flag, the Venezuelan flag, but I have never seen one of them holding an American flag.
This is the first one I have seen American flags at. And in Iran, they do wave American flags because the American flag is seen as a symbol of freedom.
I think it's kind of cool watching these people from Iran carry around an American flag. They're saying thank you, yet we have lefties here in the U.S. that are complaining about what Donald Trump did.
Well, we've said it many times before. These are people who do not understand what life would actually be like if they lived in these other nations. We are the richest, most prosperous nation in human history. There really isn't anywhere you can go as a middle-class person and live a better life. Are we perfect? No. We've said that many times. But would you rather be here or Iran right now?
Yeah, I definitely would not want to be there, even before Trump decided to go after him. But I think that kind of leads me into the next thing I wanted to talk about. There's a lot of people who throw their 2 cents in on Iran that have no idea what they're talking about. And the biggest question that I think most people don't know is, why do they hate us? And by they, I don't mean the average Iranian citizen. I mean the leaders at the top.
The average Iranian person does not hate us. Like us, they don't think about the other side very often. They're more focused on taking care of their own families. As far as the government goes, this is centuries of history and ideology. I'll keep it to recent history because that's what I'm more familiar with. In 1953, the U.S. and U.K. backed a coup that overthrew Iran's elected prime minister after he nationalized all the oil in the country. The coup restored the Shah, who ruled as an authoritarian monarch aligned with the West. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution overthrew the Shah and established the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Islamic Republic saw the U.S. as a corrupting Western power who was a threat to Islamic governance. Add in the decades of sanctions and the U.S. support for Iraq in the 1980s during the Iran-Iraq War. That all just compounded. They also really hate Israel, which is why you hear so much rhetoric around these two nations and why they talk about each other so much. There's a fundamental difference between the way the Islamic regime and the Israelis think. The regime sees Israel as an occupier of Palestinian land. Supporting the Palestinian groups strengthened their legitimacy and power in the Muslim world and resulted in a power struggle in the region. Then there's the nuclear side of all of this, which is a big reason why this conflict started. We know the regime hates us and Israel, and it was in the Islamic Republic of Iran's constitution to destroy the state of Israel. The attack by Hamas on October 7th, 2023 may go down as the biggest geopolitical mistake ever. Israel was able to eliminate one threat in Hamas. Then they found a way into Hezbollah and were able to decapitate them. That meant when it came to Iran, there were fewer guns in other places pointing at Israel, so it was only a one-front war for the most part. They still have some forces in places like Yemen or Lebanon to help them, but Hezbollah and the Houthis, as well as Hamas in the Gaza Strip, really have lost their power, and they don't have a lot of fighting force left. So Israel really can keep the main focus on Iran. They still have some forces behind to protect themselves, but Iran is really fighting this on their own.
We keep hearing people say that we just started World War III. Do you think that carries any weight? And I don't expect that Iran can put up much of a fight against the power of our military. Let me explain our military in a way that's easy for anyone to follow. Imagine a giant playground with 200 kids on it. Most kids have a few toys, and some of the bigger kids have some really cool ones. The U.S. military is the kid who has the most toys. They spend more money on their toy box than the next 10 biggest kids combined. We also have the biggest toys. We have 11 giant floating airports. Most other kids have 0, and even the ones that do have one only have 1 or 2. These airports are like tree houses that can move anywhere in the world and bring a whole team of friends with them. Then we have magic toys. We have planes that are invisible so no one can see them coming on their screens, and they're building laser tag tools that can stop bad toys from a long way away. We also have eyes everywhere. We have special space cameras that let them see everything happening on the playground all at once. And a huge team of helpers. We have playhouses, aka military bases, in almost 80 different countries. So if something goes wrong, we're already right there to help. If the whole world was a game of follow the leader, the U.S. is the one with the loudest whistle, the fastest shoes, and the most specialized gadgets in the world to make sure the game stays safe for us and our friends. So again, I ask, Matt, did we really just start World War III?
Who wants to be the one that picks that fight?
Yeah, exactly.
This conflict is mostly an air and naval fight, and there is no chance Iran can win that fight long term. The ground side of this would be different, as Iran is a mountainous country and they're very familiar with their own terrain. They have more than enough people to put up a fight if we wanted to do a ground invasion, but in the air and on the water, they are far behind us. They are using Soviet-era weaponry, as well as some older Chinese weapons and tech, but we have a massive advantage. Where are Iran's allies? Iran really doesn't have any friends willing to get in the fight. Russia condemned the United States and Israel, but no military support. China, the same. Iran's proxy networks have been severely weakened. Hezbollah's launched some rockets towards Israel, but it's not a strong response. Hamas can't do anything. The Houthis still have some capabilities, but have never really shown the capabilities to make much of a difference. You may remember, Mike, they were shooting at ships in the Red Sea. China paid the Houthis to let the Chinese-flagged ships pass, but the Houthis didn't have the capability to identify a ship before they shot at it.
Yeah, Russia condemning us is one of the most hypocritical things I have ever heard. I guess it's not really a surprise, though, that Russia hasn't responded with any force, right? Considering they're having a hard enough time with Ukraine. Everyone told us that if we touched Iran, Russia and China would start World War III. Well, it's March 1st. The smoke is still clearing over Tehran, and where is Russia and China? It turns out when the chips are down, Iran's friends are actually just customers who don't want to get their hands dirty.
Did you see Russia told Trump that he needed to withdraw all his forces from the area and stop all aggression?
I did see that, which is super rich considering where all of Putin's troops are right now.
We're doing this to prevent the leading state sponsor of terrorism from getting nuclear weapons, while he invaded Ukraine because he wanted to reestablish the old Soviet Union.
Yeah, just like I said, complete hypocrisy.
Yeah, Russia and China are led by dictators who really only care about themselves. They are allies because they have the same enemy, and that is us and the Western world as a whole. Russia and China did not prepare for this. As you mentioned, Russia's a little preoccupied. They're struggling enough with Ukraine. It takes time to build up the assets to have military operations in a distant place. Trump has been moving ships and hardware into the region for months in the event negotiations didn't work. With China in particular, they really only liked Iran because of all the cheap discounted oil they were able to buy. It's a similar story with why China likes Russia. I've been looking at some of the other nations in the world and how they have responded, particularly the UK. The UK is not in a great spot, so I was expecting them to condemn us. I was slightly impressed with their very weak response, which was them publicly saying they had nothing to do with it. They didn't endorse or condemn the strikes. However, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has confirmed that the U.S. can use military bases in the UK for operations that are seen as defensive. You're old enough to remember the UK as the dominating force in the world with the global navy and as an empire that the sun never set on. They had territories everywhere. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. We didn't even ask them or tell them about it.
Well, the last thing I want to do here is slam liberals for a minute. It's not hard to find reasons, but the biggest one right now is how the left is condemning Trump for attacking Iran. Yet, like we said before, the Iranian people are celebrating in the streets and waving the American flag around. And Matt, credit where credit is due. You said we could expect an attack when the Olympics ended. 8 days later, boom.
I want to take a victory lap, but this was so easy that I don't think I should. I knew it was coming. Iran was negotiating, but not in good faith like they said they wanted us to do. You do not need uranium-235 enriched to above 60% unless you want to build a weapon. You only need the uranium enriched to 3 to 5% for commercial power. I have said this in a previous episode, but Iran had 2 nuclear enrichment facilities with 1 nuclear power plant prior to Operation Midnight Hammer last June. To give some perspective, France has only 1 enrichment facility, while they have 73 nuclear power plants. It was clear that they wanted the ultimate weapon that would make the regime unstoppable in the future. It has been U.S. policy, long before Trump got in office, that Iran can't get a nuclear weapon. Israel feels the same way, and it's their policy as well. As for the left, you knew this reaction was coming. Trump was on one side, so they had to take the other. Why anyone would be upset that the leading sponsor of terrorism was removed from power is beyond me. Most people deep down know this is a good thing. The world is a far safer place now. It always sucks when we lose some of our own troops, and of course we hope to keep the casualties to a minimum. But considering more than 1,000 troops had been lost in the last couple of decades because of Iran committing terror attacks, and in those cases we did little to nothing, this was a good choice in my opinion. All the top military commanders and leaders of the regime got together in one place, and that shot was too good of an opportunity for us to pass up. This day was always coming. The Iranian regime was always going to try and get a nuclear weapon. It was important Trump did it, and it's a really good thing that this moment came when Trump was in office, not Joe Biden.
So I think it's pretty safe to assume that if you were sitting in the Oval Office, you would have pressed the button too.
Yes. When Israel called me and said, the top 40 are all going to be in one room, can we speed up our plan? I would have said yes.
At first, though, you would have laughed a little bit and not believed him, right?
I would have asked for proof, because that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, for domestic reasons, Trump needs to wrap this up very quickly. He campaigned on not starting forever wars, so this can't really go beyond a couple weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long do you expect this to last? The other thing I want to get into, I saw a post on social media, obviously it was a lefty, saying something about how Netanyahu and Trump have now killed more children than the Sandy Hook shooting just in the last 24 hours. And what I don't think a lot of people understand is where Iran positions their military bases and their headquarters. So for the people in the back who may not be able to hear you, Matt, where do they put their military bases?
In dense urban areas. I've
like
heard,
right next to schools.
Yeah, I've heard people say that we're flattening cities. We aren't flattening cities. We're doing targeted, precise strikes to hit specific targets. We don't flatten cities. We don't put our headquarters under hospitals. That's what they do because they don't think the way we do. They know we won't shoot at something if we know it'll come with high civilian casualties, so they use the civilians as a shield. By the way, it is a war crime to put your headquarters for military operations under a hospital or a school. They don't care.
Yeah, they just want the moral high ground, and then that way the lefties can come back and say, oh, you killed these innocent people, yada, 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 even though Iran is the one that's purposefully putting their children and their civilians in harm's way.
And they do it because they know the moment it happens, they can run to the media and say, Israel shot at a hospital. They'll leave the part out that their headquarters was under it. They know the idea of someone shooting at a hospital is terrible. And Israel and the U.S. and every other Western nation agrees. That's why we don't do it. There's a reason Israel was calling all of the hospitals and schools in the Gaza Strip, warning them that airstrikes were coming and they needed to leave. The problem was Hamas was already there and they wouldn't let the people leave.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up real quick because I think it's unfair that people are giving Trump criticism over some of these civilian casualties. And same thing with Netanyahu when, like we said, Iran doesn't care about its people. I mean, we saw that when they were protesting. They don't even let people protest there. They were killing the protesters. So they put their military bases in places they shouldn't just so that they can try to take the moral high ground later.
Western democracies do everything they can to avoid civilian casualties, and that's what makes fighting some of these nations so difficult. They don't care about how we think. They'll dress their own military personnel in civilian clothing and fight in civilian clothing.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, instead of us saying Orange Man bad, we should be saying shame on Iran's leadership.
Yeah, but that's what Trump said, and we can't agree with that. Well, let's move on to the next story. And in one that some will have seen coming, on the night of March 1st in Austin, Texas, a mass shooting occurred at Buford's Backyard Beer Garden, a popular nightlife spot near the University of Texas. A gunman, later identified as Anjaga Diagne, 53, fired multiple shots into patrons outside the bar from his SUV. After driving past several times and shooting from his vehicle, he parked it, exited, and continued firing at people on foot. Police arrived within minutes and shot and killed the suspect at the scene. 2 people were killed and 14 others were injured. Some of them were reported in critical condition. Police are investigating this as a potential act of terrorism, but motives have not yet been confirmed. At the scene and in his vehicle, law enforcement found religious references, for example, a Quran, clothing with the phrase "property of Allah" and an Iranian flag. While we do not know if he was linked to the Iranian regime, we can assume that had something to do with it. I hate to make assumptions, but if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. He was a Senegalese individual who moved to the U.S. in 2000 on a tourist visa, then married a U.S. citizen to become a lawful permanent resident. Despite that, he clearly didn't adopt our way of thinking, because people in a good mental state who are happy with their own community don't do this kind of thing.
Was he still with the person that he married to become a citizen?
I haven't seen anything about his family. I would presume no. There's been no mention of a family, but I haven't heard anything specific about it.
I'm wondering how that all plays up. We'll have to look into that later. You hit the nail on the head with the duck analogy. The timing of this is obviously not a coincidence. We just leveled the IRGC's capabilities 48 hours ago, and then suddenly a lone wolf with an Iranian flag shows up at a Texas beer garden. This wasn't just a shooting. This was retaliation. This was retaliation by a proxy living among us.
Yeah, most likely. No guarantees that the regime sent him to do it, and I would imagine that's the least likely outcome of this. Odds are he was someone who was supportive of the regime and he wanted revenge.
All right, well, we got the 2 big stories out of the way. Let's play a little hypothetical here for a few minutes. President Trump posted on Truth Social on Friday how different things would be if Kamala Harris would have won the election. Now, I want to read you this list and see if you agree or disagree with anything. So the first one is millions more illegals crossing the border. I think we can both agree, definitely.
Yes.
Billions more in fraud. I think enough to make Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar very jealous.
Yes, and they would be very happy because their own fraud wouldn't have been seen.
Oh, yeah. Then we have more criminals would have been released, limits on free speech, gun restrictions, trans propaganda in schools, higher taxes on everything. I think that one's a guaranteed lock, especially after we just saw the Democrats at the State of the Union cheer for more taxes.
They would have done everything they could to get more of your money.
Yeah. More DEI hires, just like Kamala herself. Military recruitment would have plunged. Police would be defunded. And they, of course, would have packed the Supreme Court.
I don't say this lightly. And if the Democrats had any normal candidate, I wouldn't. But if we had Kamala Harris as president, we'd be screwed. Do you think she would have pulled the trigger on Operation Midnight Hammer?
Absolutely not.
There's a good chance she wouldn't. Do you think Biden would?
Definitely not.
That would mean there is a good chance Iran would have had a nuclear weapon by now. Trump set them back last year and gave us some time. If things looked good for the Democrats in the lead up to the election in 2024, Biden does not drop out and they continue with all the policies they had been using. The border would have stayed wide open, cashless bail would keep going, free speech was being restricted, as we know, because big tech provided evidence that the Biden administration was pressuring them to silence people. That all would have continued, but most likely would have been worse because they would have gotten away with it for 4 years and thought they could get away with more to keep the power. Everything they were doing would have had 4 more years to run, but Democrats saw how bad people viewed them, so they changed the policies in the last 6 to 8 months in the lead up to the election to make it look better and give themselves a better chance. Trump was right. Instead of reversing course on many of those things, they would have kept going. Those are things Democrats truly believe today. They had Abigail Spanberger in Virginia run as a moderate, knowing she couldn't win as a socialist. Then she took office and immediately became very progressive. As you mentioned, the left cheered at the State of the Union when Trump said the left wanted to raise taxes. Trump called him crazy in that speech, and I think he was right.
Yeah, I definitely think all that stuff would have happened. It's crazy to think about where we would be right now if Kamala Harris would have won. It's scary. Well, Matt, we are at the end of the show. It is time for our blind ranking segment. Same categories last episode. You are giving me the list today. Non-politicians that I would vote for president. Fire away.
I got a really good list for you today. I'm starting with someone who's been on TV a lot, and you've seen him a lot over the last month. He's the D-O-double-G, Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg.
You know weed will be legal on day one.
Definitely. I'm going to put Snoop at 3.
Going number 3, okay. Next one up, Will Ferrell.
I'm going to put Will at 5 because I know what he stands for, and I don't like it.
Number 5, wow.
Yeah. He's very loud on social media and when he's in front of a camera. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's that funny.
He used to be. He's lost a little bit.
Not a huge fan of him.
Next up, you have Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. There was the whole Scientology thing. Is he still doing that?
I don't believe so. He might be, but I haven't heard a whole lot about it.
I mean, that's tough because, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Tom Cruise's movies. I just don't know who's coming next. I'm going to put Tom Cruise at 2.
Number 2. You have 1 and 4 open. And next up, you have Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks. I don't know much about his politics.
He hates Donald Trump.
He hates Donald. Okay, well, I'm going to throw him at 4 then. I guess I'm going to have to take a flyer here on number 1.
Your number 1, Michael B. Jordan.
I don't like that. Man, I should have put Tom Cruise at 1.
I had a feeling you would say that after you put Hanks 4.
Yeah, bummer. All right, well, swing and a miss there. That's it for episode 38 of the Republic Brothers podcast. If you're still listening, you're exactly who the podcast is for. Before you click away, hit the subscribe and follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. If you agree or disagree with anything we talked about today, drop a comment and let us know. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.